Indy, welcome back to the UFC to Northern Ireland's Rhys McKee. We have this return of Skeletor, the Cage Warriors welterweight champ, the former Bama lightweight champ way back in the day. McKee had a couple of tough losses in the UFC to Khamzat Chimaev and Alex Morono, if you don't know. But McKee riding a 3-fight win streak, and he's going to be taking on Congo and Switzerland's own, the last ninja, Ange Loosa. And when you look at a matchup like this, Matt, I don't know how the fans couldn't get excited, because both of these guys throw tons and tons of volume. They'll give a shot to take a shot, and I think this is going to be one of the more interesting and entertaining fights that we have on the card. And if you've never seen Rhys McKee fight, or if you just watched the Chimaev fight, you're not getting the complete picture. McKee, back with Bama, when he was going back-to-back, or at least having a couple of fights against then Tim Barnett. First fight, Barnett is able to go out there and get the finish win. He clinches up, he's landing the knees, and McKee is done. Barnett wins the championship. They rematch a little bit later, and McKee's going out there and doing the exact same thing to Barnett. So I know I had a ton of fun going back and watching McKee fights before he was in the UFC. His performance where 5 seconds in, Chimaev's got him, slams him to the mat, and then ultimately ends up getting the finish. McKee's very, very volume-filled, power-punching fight against Alex Morono. And then the 3 fights that have happened for McKee outside of the UFC, he beats long-time Cage Warriors vet Alexei Manikivi. It was an awesome one where it was just an accumulation of damage throughout that one. McKee lost a point there for those eye rakes. Takes on Justin Burlinson, wins the belt in that matchup, and then he's able to defend against that old scrappy UFC vet, Jim Wallhead. Judo Jim, wearing those knee wraps. So, again, I had a ton of fight watching McKee fights.
Had a lot of fun.
But when you look at it for Ange Loosa, we've been talking about him for a long time. Whether it's him going over to the Caucasus regions, fighting their guy and knocking him dead, or whether it's him fighting in a competitive bout on Dana White's Contender Series against, you guys know him, Jack Della Maddalena. Loosa's had a very fun career. He came into the UFC on a week and a half's notice, taking on Munir Lazzez. He got outstruck on the outside by a really long striker. Kind of like what Rhys McKee is. But for Loosa's last time out against AJ Fletcher, wins the first, wins the third. It was a good one where he was able to defend some of the takedowns too. So when you look at a fight like this, it's Killcliff against Northern Ireland. This should be a good matchup here.
Rhys McKee is a long striker physically, but does he always strike like a long striker? That is the big issue, and I do
in his last 3 fights at welterweight he has.
Even though we have seen that, if Alex Morono could get on the inside of your range and hit you with a crazy amount of volume, I'm going to have to see it against a guy like Ange Loosa for me to really be convinced. Because the thing about McKee is, he does give up a lot defensively in pursuit of his own offense. And yes, he does have phenomenal volume, but the thing is, when you're always throwing, well, it's not like you have your hands up by your head, and McKee can get hit by some counter shots. Now, Loosa is not one of those one-of-one counter punchers, so I don't think this will be a case of Ange Loosa can stay on the outside, kind of bob and weave, and land a big counter shot. But if we do get both of these guys in the middle of the cage, and they are playing to their peaks, they are throwing that high-volume game, I'm just going to be curious to see how many shots McKee is taking in the matchup, because again, when he's standing up very upright and throwing a lot of those straight shots, he can be susceptible to getting hit by some bigger punches. And for Ange Loosa, I'm going to be really interested to see if he does decide to throw a lot of leg and body kicks in this matchup, because McKee, and you don't need me to tell you this, his nickname Skeletor, he fights at 170, he is huge. Like, frame-wise, he looked Chimaev in the eye, put it that way, and not a lot of guys do in this division. So McKee does have a lot of those one-of-one physical attributes in this weight class, but again, we talk about this all the time. The old Luke Rockhold, when you're real tall, you like to lean back. And no, McKee doesn't lean back, he will march forward, but again, he's going to eat shots if that's what he decides to do by just marching forward.
And McKee, if you watch him when he was at lightweight, you can go back and watch that Banama fight on YouTube where he takes on Jai Herbert on the poster, and that's how he was able to get the title. But if you go and you watch that much younger fighter at 21, he's going out there moving a lot on the feet, but his head stays still and his arms stay out. And now that he's moved up, since he's gone back to Cage Warriors, he's still moving around a lot on the feet, but he has incorporated moving his core and moving his head quite a bit. Not to say that
how do you move your core?
How do you move your core?
Well, yeah, but nobody in the world moves their core out of body shots. They block them, parry, and
I'm not saying on body shots, Matt. I just said he moves his core.
Just for anything, though. For the most part, you move your feet and your head. Your core follows.
You watch guys move their core all the time. God, people don't stand still and move their
No,
head.
but they
What
move their
fights are you
feet. How
watching?
many people just stand there and move just their core?
What if your
Normally
shoulder
you move your
rolling?
feet and your head?
core is moving and your shoulder.
But that's
Regardless,
moving your head. That's my whole point. You're getting your head out of trouble if you shoulder roll. You don't shoulder roll your body.
you just move your body and you don't think about it. It's just one part and parcel. But when you watch Rhys McKee fight, there has been big level ups. Now, again, he has gotten hit. Justin Burlinson was landing those spinning elbows until he wasn't, and he ate a left hook. And for Loosa, again, you look at it and you consider the strikes that he's been able to throw in these fights. He goes up at an almost exponential rate from round 1 to round 3. Finds himself into the fight. He's not like Morgan Charriere that's going to be on this card. So if you're trying to make a pick on this one, Matt, Ange Loosa is the favorite in the matchup. We have a look over on Topology to get an idea what the fans are thinking. I'm going to say over under 60% with Ange Loosa in this one.
I think it'll be slightly over, but it'll be before 70%.
All right, and it's the opposite. 1,237 total votes, 63% McKee, 37% by decision, 54% by knockout. For the 37% that have Loosa, 69% by decision. I could see this fight, 3-round atmosphere, going to a decision. Again, I think McKee's leveled up, but even I'll say this. The big thing that McKee hasn't figured out from lightweight to UFC to welterweight is leg kicks too. He will try and check leg kicks after somebody's already thrown 5, 6, 7 of them, and they've already started to take their effect. And when he switches over to southpaw, it's not the most effective stance for him. So when you're trying to make a pick in this one, Matt, I think Ange Loosa, like just in general, coming into the UFC was very, very underrated. Now he gets his big shot against a big name. And for McKee, not to lump him into the Cage Warriors contingent, but we've seen a lot of Cage Warriors fighters recently just burn right out. So when it does come down to this one, I have a tough time on the pick, though. It sounds like I've hyped one fighter up more than the other. It's been a lot more tape on the one other guy than it has been for Ange Loosa.
This is a great return fight for Rhys McKee. I don't think, like I said, this isn't just going to be one of those 5-minute kind of washouts for McKee. So hopefully this is a performance that can at least justify giving him more performances. But I think Ange Loosa is going to do a slightly better job defensively. Now, I do worry about this fight as it continues because I do agree with you. Rhys McKee does have volume that at a minimum is crazy in the first round and just stays crazy all 3 rounds. But again, he can build as the fight continues if he's not eating a lot of damage throughout those first 2 rounds. So I do have Ange Loosa ever so slightly. For me, I would put him at like 60% and then 40% McKee. I think it's a very close
Loosa was able to land 88 strikes against Munir Lazez. It wasn't on a week's and a half's notice. It was on 4 days' notice. 88 significant strikes. 40 of them were leg kicks. If you do that against McKee, you're going to have a lot of success. And if you're hyping yourself up like Ange Loosa does before a fight, his walkout song is Intro by Meek Mill. That song goes hard. But where I like Rhys McKee in this fight is exactly why I like Munir Lazez when he took on Ange Loosa. The range, the distance, and the boxing of a guy like McKee, I just favor him in this fight ever so slightly. So we're splitting the pick. I'm going with Skeletor. Not going with the Last Ninja. Let us know down below in the comment section who you have. The next matchup on the card, it's women's bantamweight. We have Nora Cornolle taking on Joselyne Edwards. You're not going to want to miss any of it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.